When I first read about the Game Boy Advance in some gaming magazine I borrowed from a high school friend back in 2000, God, I'm old. They had me right away with the three little words that were often used to describe the system: portable Super Nintendo. That's how a lot of the gaming press was referring to the console prior to it coming out. It was a safe bet not only due to what the hardware would likely be able to accomplish, but also because it just seemed like the next logical step. The Game Boy and the Game Boy Color were comparable to the NES, so the next Nintendo portable console would likely be equivalent to the SNES. And you know me, I'm a portability freak, always have been. The idea of playing Super Nintendo games on the go captured my imagination in a way that it's quite difficult to describe. This was obviously before portable emulation was a thing. These days, having the entire SNES library on the go is old hat, but back then, being able to put a little portable SNES in your pocket was a real paradigm shift. To me, it felt as groundbreaking as when VHS came into the market, allowing someone to rewatch their favorite movies whenever they wanted. Though to me, calling the GBA a portable SNES was perhaps the most enticing selling point a system could have back in 2000, looking back, it's actually an unflattering angle, because the GBA was so much more than just a portable SNES. And I enlisted the help of some of my YouTube buddies to talk about our most memorable GBA titles, like Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. I regretfully dodged the Castlevania series for most of my life, though an avid Vampire the Masquerade fanboy back in the day. When it comes to... My character sheets are still here from like 15 years ago. When it comes to video games, the vampire gothic horror thing just doesn't do it for me. Aria of Sorrow, the last and arguably best of the excellent GBA Castlevania series, is an odd Vania title in that it actually takes place in the future of first for the series. You follow the adventures of Soma Cruz, a Japanese student. I know it's not a very Japanese sounding name. Hold it. I think I f***ed up here. So I went to check the Wikipedia page for Soma Cruz, and as it turns out, he was a Japanese student in the original game, where he was named Soma Kuruzo, and I know I'm not pronouncing it right, okay, okay. In the American translation, Soma Kuruzo became Soma Cruz, and he's now a transfer student, not a Japanese student, so I guess I was half right? You follow the adventures of Soma Cruz, a student who gets sucked into Dracula's castle while watching a solar eclipse. And then it's off to killing classic Castlevania monsters by the tons. There's so much design and gameplay variety in the enemies you fight, the weapons you can use, and the places you can explore. The game never gets stale. Just as you think this place is starting to feel a little bit samey, a new area pops up with new enemies to fight. The game will keep surprising you up until the very end. And even though I've beat it, I still come across online videos showing areas I've never seen before. It's a pretty big game. I know that this is probably a super unfair comparison, but I was getting back into Breath of the Wild after replaying Aria of Sorrow, and it's night and day when it comes to enemy character design. Some 30 hours in, I'm still fighting the exact same lizards and skeleton monsters and weird one-eyed bats I was battling when I first bought the game months ago. I know there's more than that in Breath of the Wild, but there's too much of those. You know what I'm talking about, right? Aria of Sorrow feels like the exact opposite of something like Breath of the Wild. Even in a small confined space, you'll see a lot of new faces, so to speak. Aria of Sorrow also has a souls system. Soma Cruz can absorb the souls of every enemy in the game, Kirby style really, and gain their abilities. And since there is a ton of enemies, there's also a ton of souls, making for a lot of combat variety. You can mix and match the weapons and the souls you get, so no two playthroughs of Aria of Sorrow are going to be exactly the same because of that. You really can't go wrong with Aria of Sorrow. It's considered one of the best games in the series, ranking above Symphony of the Night in a lot of lists. This is the GBA game well worth your time.
God damn, man. The Game Boy Advance had so many memorable games, like Pokemon, for instance, and Pokemon. You can't forget Pokemon. And of course, Disney's Lilo and Stitch, which is actually surprisingly a very good little gem, believe it or not. So Izzy asked me to pick my most memorable video game from the Game Boy Advance lineup, so naturally I decided to cheat and pick Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2. Which is straight up just a portable port of Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna blame me or something? It's one of the best 2D platformers ever made, and now you can take it literally anywhere you go. Want to take it on a bus? Want to take it on a plane? Want to take it to your grave? You can do all those things. Come on, Switch. Look alive. I don't really know what I can say about Super Mario World that hasn't already been said. The music is amazing. The level design is friggin' masterclass. It is still my favorite 2D Mario game that's ever been made. Take your new Super Mario Bros. Wii shit and walk home to your daycare, okay? There are some drawbacks, of course, what with the Game Boy Advance being far less powerful than the original Super Nintendo. You can't play 2 players like you could on the original, obviously, because it's portable and you'd have to be a psychopath to even begin to figure that out. But that's okay, because I didn't have friends, so I didn't notice. It's your standard Mario fare: run, jump, save a whammon. But you know, it just feels so at home on the Game Boy Advance that I honestly just straight up forget that it came out on the SNES, even though that's where I first played it. It's a fantastic game. Mario, more like Mario, oh my god, give me more of that, please. I'm coughing up blood, but my doctor says I could just walk it off, so I think I'm okay.
What's up, guys? My name is Raymond Strazdas, and real quick, I have to give a big thank you to my good friend Izzy for asking me to be a part of this video. After all this time, we finally get to collab, so this was a long time coming. Regardless, today we are talking about our favorite underrated Game Boy Advance games, and the Game Boy Advance was pretty much my childhood in a nutshell. From the Wario Land series to Metroid Fusion to the obvious Pokemon, Mario, and Zelda titles, there were just so many games that defined the Game Boy Advance for me, but one heavily underappreciated game that really always stood out to me was Dragon Ball Advance Adventure. I love the Dragon Ball series, but the games can sometimes be hit or miss, and as far as I'm concerned, Advanced Adventure is always going to be one of the sleeper hits. It's a hectic side-scrolling adventure and fighting game that just stays true to the original Dragon Ball series with the detailed anime-style sprites, intense gameplay, and it always just stood out to me as a game that I think deserved a lot more attention than it got. With that being said, if I could only pick one game not named Mario, Zelda, or Pokemon as my favorite Game Boy Advance game, it would no doubt be Dragon Ball Advance Adventure. That game's great!
The Game Boy Advance. I put countless hours into this system as a kid because there was such a large variety of amazing games that were full of content. One game that captivated my attention for years was Mega Man Battle Network 5 Team Colonel. Also comes in Team Proto Man version. This game is a hidden gem that still has depth and replayability to this day. Whether you're familiar with the Mega Man Battle Network series or not, it doesn't matter. You can jump right in and engross yourself in this lengthy story. Team Colonel takes place in 2 settings. An overworld where you play as the main character, Lan, as well as in cyberspace where you play as Lan's counterpart and partner in the story, Mega Man. Battle Network 5 incorporates RPG elements like creating your own custom build of abilities and stats, but it's not turn-based or slow-paced at all. In fact, it moves at a breakneck pace in combat and in the more difficult encounters of the game, where you have to strategize and react to intense fights. Oftentimes, you're facing a challenging variety of enemies who have their own unique abilities and strategies. Along the adventure, you uncover a plot that's surprisingly more relevant to the modern day than ever. Essentially, a plan to reach the singularity, an age where humans are merged with technology. In this case, Navi. In other words, characters like Mega Man that are counterparts to humans. You're tasked with fighting an evil syndicate known as Nebula for control of the net, and to stop their plan to enact Soul Link, which, like I said, is like their version of the Singularity. The pacing of the game mixes up as well. In addition to flying solo, there are what's called liberation missions, where you play as members of Team Colonel or Team Proto Man respectively, depending on the game. Each member of the team has their own unique abilities when you're playing as them in this more RTS-style scenario. I can't rave enough about this game and how fun it is to explore new strategies, new abilities, and fight your way through each encounter. The only thing this game is missing is a robust online experience, but of course that's to be expected as it was made during the Game Boy Advance era, so only local play is supported, and sadly its successor, Battle Network 6, was the last game of the series. I feel like there's a lot more potential in this series than people realized, and a lot of content and fun to be had playing it. Hopefully we get a new Battle Network in the future, but until then, if you've never played it, you can hop right into Battle Network 5 and have an amazing time playing it.
Alright, so I've been asked to talk about my favorite Game Boy Advance game, and since somebody already took Mega Man Battle Network from me, we're gonna be talking about Golden Sun instead. I'm just joking, I absolutely adored Golden Sun. It was actually the first JRPG I ever ended up playing in my life, unless you want to count Pokemon. Now the thing I remember the most was that it was just so different from anything else I had really played at that point in my life. It literally starts with the main character being shooken awake by his mom because a giant boulder is going to come down and crush the village. Little bit intense. Now at its core, Golden Sun is your typical JRPG. You have a team of 4 central characters to use on your journey as you battle monsters, solve puzzles, and interact with the world around you. Now what gives it a little bit more of its flair is that the characters are actually required to use these magic spells called synergy to help solve the puzzles, which is a little bit different than the standard JRPG where spells are usually limited in combat situations. This game actually encourages you to use it in all aspects of the game. And the synergy specifically comes from 4 central elements, which are actually under the names Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Mercury. Now the thing that actually ended up attracting me to the game the most were these little dudes. There's actually a ton of these that you can find in your journey. They're all just related to those 4 elements, but there's multiple within each element. So if you haven't played Golden Sun, I would strongly recommend you trying to track down a way to do so. It is easily one of the greatest JRPGs that's been released, and sadly it's kind of gotten forgotten over the years.
Contrary to the other folks in this video, I never actually got my hands on a legit Game Boy Advance because my parents starved me of video games. They didn't like video games. The only way I was able to experience the Game Boy Advance was through emulation. And because I was a huge fan of Super Metroid, I went ahead and downloaded Metroid Fusion, and I had a great time with that game. And as far as I remember, it was pretty much a Metroid game, but there was one really cool moment in that where Samus ended up losing her suit and she had to find a way out of this alien ship and survive without her suit. And I thought that was really, really, really cool. And if I remember correctly, there was also another a darker version of Sam. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. Maybe I'm mixing some Metroid games here. But anyway, Metroid Fusion, I clearly do remember Samus losing her suit and that being a really, really cool moment of the game. So that's my Game Boy Advance memory that I have. I didn't play very many Game Boy Advance games, unfortunately, you know, but that is one of them.
So my game of choice for the Game Boy Advance was none other than Sonic Battle. This was my favorite game for the Game Boy Advance. I don't know if you guys ever tried it, but you should. A good example or comparison would be to Power Stone and Smash Brothers. Now, it's only Sonic characters from the Sonic universe, but you're able to play up to 4 players in a 3D arena and fight with your friends. You level up and you just do all these awesome combos, and everyone has a special. I always chose Shadow because Shadow is my favorite, and he had a special where he would use the Chaos Control and just demolish everything. Another thing it had was that you could also customize your robots. You had your own robot. You could add new movesets, you could add new gear, and you could also change their color, and they could fight for you in the game. And I thought it was pretty cool. So it's like a fighting RPG game, and you can't go wrong with that. So that was my favorite game. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and shout out to Izzy for making me a part of this. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. I'm gonna go play with my Game Boy Advance. I'll see you guys later.
So those are 7 awesome GBA titles that are still worth your time today. And I'm wearing different clothes because I forgot I was supposed to do this end part, and then I showered and I went out for lunch. And then when I came back and I was editing, I realized there's no closing statements, so I hope you like this video. If you're new here, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. I want to give a huge thanks to the people who sent in their bits for this video. All their channels are going to be in the description so you can check it out, though I imagine you probably already know a lot of these guys. Follow me on social media. I'm very active on both Twitter and Instagram. And that's all the time I have for today. I'm Izzy and I'm done.